The rain hit the rusted window panes of room 7B like a steady drumbeat, drowning out the sound of everything but the ticking wall clock. Inside, 32 students bent over their midterm exam papers, pens flying in desperate rhythms. Except for one. Arjun Mishra sat in the last row, pencil untouched, fingers tracing the edge of the desk, eyes distant, not bored, not sleepy, but alert, as though his thoughts were someplace else entirely. His exam paper was blank. Again. Miss Tara Mehra stood by the front desk, arms folded, trying not to sigh too loudly. This was the 5th test Arjun had left unanswered. She watched him. 15 years old. Neatly combed hair, uniform worn but clean. No signs of rebellion. No visible laziness. Just silence. Stillness. The bell rang, signaling the end of the exam. Groans and sighs filled the air as students turned in their papers. Arjun quietly walked to her, handed over his untouched sheet, and without a word, returned to his seat to pack up. Tara stared at the blank page in her hand, a strange twist forming in her chest. Not anger. Not disappointment. Just curiosity. Arjun, she called softly. He paused in the doorway but didn't turn. You didn't even try. His voice came, almost a whisper. I don't like trying the wrong way. She blinked. He was gone before she could ask what he meant. That night, Tara sat by her small heater in the teacher's quarters, holding Arjun's test paper. The storm outside raged like the one inside her mind. He wasn't failing because he couldn't learn, of that she was sure. She had seen the way he observed things, the way he once corrected a faulty plug in the projector without being asked, the way he fixed a broken wall fan with nothing but a pen spring and tape. This wasn't a lazy boy. This was something else. Something deeper. The question wasn't why Arjun failed. It was, what did the world fail to see in him? And with that thought, a spark lit within her. She decided she'd find out. Tara Mehra hadn't planned to teach in a sleepy town tucked between desert plains and forgotten train tracks. But when life imploded in Mumbai, when her mother passed, when her fiancé left without warning, and when the city felt like a cage she couldn't breathe in, this place became her escape. She thought time would move slowly here. That she would have space to heal. Instead, she found herself drawn into a world that pulsed with untold stories. Stories like Arjun's. He'd transferred to the school a year ago, with no father at parent-teacher meetings, no enthusiasm in sports, and no marks to speak of. Most teachers had written him off. Some mocked him behind closed doors. One even suggested to the principal that the school should cut their losses and ask his family to withdraw him. But Tara saw flickers, tiny moments that didn't fit the image of a failing student. One day, during a power outage, the classroom fan stopped working in the sweltering heat. While the other students groaned and fanned themselves with notebooks, Arjun stood, walked silently to the wall, opened the switchboard, and within 2 minutes had the fan humming again. No one noticed. Tara did. She clapped. The class laughed awkwardly. Arjun merely shrugged and returned to his seat, head down. Another time, she was trying to untangle wires for the computer lab projector. Arjun passed by and said, without looking, "You're plugging the HDMI into the power port." He was right. Yet when it came to writing an essay, solving textbook math, or filling in multiple choice answers, he submitted blank pages or scribbles. Tara's confusion turned into concern. One evening after class, she wandered into the old art room while searching for colored charts. There, buried under dusty folders and leftover science fair projects, she found a stack of sketchbooks. Most were doodles. One wasn't. Its cover was worn. Inside, pages were filled with intricate blueprints, flying machines, energy circuits, robotic limbs. Each drawing was labeled with clear handwriting. There were notes about lift force, motion sensors, and microcontrollers. Small observations like, current draw reduced when fan blades are angled 11 degrees, and, power restored using diode bridge and broken toy car. Tara sat down, awestruck. This wasn't just talent. This was brilliance. And then she saw the initials. A. Mishra. Dash dash dash. The next morning, she waited until class ended. Arjun, she said, holding out the notebook, is this yours? He hesitated. Where did you find it? In the art room. He looked panicked, as if she'd uncovered a secret he was afraid to share. Did you draw all this? He nodded slowly. You understand this? I built most of it. Her breath caught. You built these. He looked at the ground. They're not perfect. They're extraordinary. Arjun blinked, as if no one had ever said that to him. She asked the question that had haunted her for weeks. Then why don't you answer exam questions? His fingers fidgeted with the hem of his sleeve. Because they don't ask the right questions. She tilted her head. What do you mean? He looked at her then, really looked. They ask me to repeat. To remember. I don't think like that. I want to solve problems, not recite them. His words hung in the air, clear and painfully honest. Tara sat down beside him. And your parents? Did they know about this? He smiled faintly. My mother knows I fix things. She thinks I should be an electrician. My father doesn't live with us. And the others? Teachers. Friends. They laugh when I speak. So I don't. Her heart ached. This boy had been silenced not by failure, but by misunderstanding. He wasn't broken. He was simply unheard. Dash dash dash. Later that week, Tara stayed back after school to watch him work. Arjun brought a cardboard box filled with scrap, wires, motors, broken remote control toys, and plastic bottles. In an hour, he had a tiny quadcopter assembled on a worn-out desk. Try it, he said shyly. It buzzed into the air, steady and still, hovering before gently landing. Tara clapped, her face lit with wonder. Arjun smiled, a real smile, like sunlight breaking through cloud. That night, Tara sat at her small desk and wrote a letter to the principal, attaching photos of the sketchbook, the drone, and her observations. This boy needed a platform. He needed to be seen. And if no one else would help him, then she would. 2 weeks later, the school buzzed with news. The district-level innovation fair was being revived after 4 years. Tara's hands trembled as she filled out the application on Arjun's behalf. He didn't meet the grade cutoff, but she pleaded her case directly to the coordinator, a retired engineer named Mr. Vyas, sending the drone video, sketches, and a passionate letter. The response came in 2 days. Approved. Let the boy show us what the textbooks forgot to teach. When she told Arjun, he didn't smile. He just stared at her, then asked, why are you doing this for me? She paused. Because someone should have done it for me once. And because the world needs to see what I see in you. He swallowed hard. They worked together every afternoon in the dusty science lab. Tara used her savings to buy a soldering kit and some microchips. Arjun sketched and rewired, soldered and tested. They built a prototype called the Sparrow, a tiny drone designed to deliver medicine to remote villages using basic GPS. One day, while testing it, Arjun's hand trembled. What's wrong? She asked. He stared at the drone in his hand. What if they laugh again? They won't, she said gently. And even if they do, you fly it anyway. On the day of the exhibition, the school bus barely made it to the city auditorium through muddy back roads. Arjun had never spoken in front of a crowd. He had never been outside their small town. His voice cracked during the presentation. He stumbled on words. But when he powered up the Sparrow, the room went silent. The drone lifted from the demo table, soared above the judges' heads, and gently dropped a small capsule into a designated target marked on the stage. Applause erupted. Arjun blinked, stunned. For the first time, people weren't laughing. They were clapping. A week later, the Sparrow was featured in a regional science digest. A local NGO reached out to explore the idea for field use. More importantly, the education board contacted the school. They wanted to meet the boy who'd failed every exam yet built a solution engineers had overlooked. The school called an emergency staff meeting. Some teachers were uneasy. He doesn't even pass math, one scoffed. He doesn't need to, Tara replied calmly. Because he understands it in ways we forgot to teach. And then she said it, the thing that changed everything. Grades measure memory. Arjun builds solutions. Which one matters more? Dash dash dash. That weekend, Tara visited Arjun's home for the first time. His mother, a thin woman with tired eyes, welcomed her with warm tea and cautious hope. I thought he was just different, she confessed. I told him to keep his head down. Not cause trouble. Tara smiled. He's not different. He's gifted. And the world is starting to notice. Arjun sat quietly, fixing a broken radio in the corner. He looked up once and met her gaze. No words passed between them. But gratitude radiated from him like heat from a flame. Dash dash dash. A few days later, after school, Tara found a folded piece of paper on her desk. It was a hand-drawn thank you card. In the center was a sketch, her, standing beside a drone, smiling. Below it, in shaky handwriting, were 5 words. You saw me. Thank you. She pressed the paper to her chest and closed her eyes. Sometimes, kindness wasn't loud. Sometimes, it was showing up. Believing in someone. Giving them one chance when the world had given them none. And in doing so, you saved not just their life. You saved your own. 3 weeks later, the old school auditorium buzzed with an unfamiliar energy. A regional science exhibition had been relocated to the school due to a scheduling conflict elsewhere. Tara had pulled every string she could, persuaded the reluctant principal, and, most importantly, convinced Arjun to enter. He nearly refused. I'm not like them, he said. They speak so well. They wear suits. They have kits with perfect packaging. I don't even have a proper bag to carry my models. Tara knelt beside him that day, touched his shoulder, and whispered, the world needs people like you, Arjun. Even if it doesn't know it yet. So, on the morning of the exhibition, he stood behind a crooked wooden table covered in reassembled plastic parts, wires, a salvaged laptop, and one working drone. No fancy charts. No rehearsed speech. Just him. And beside him, quietly watching with a proud smile, was Tara. Judges passed by, pausing longer than expected. One of them, an engineer from a local startup, stared at Arjun's model with disbelief. You built this, from scrap. Arjun nodded. No 3D printer. No soldering iron. Just tape. And some glue from a broken shoe repair kit. The man laughed in amazement. And the coding? Wrote it myself. It's basic. He demonstrated how the drone could avoid walls using a rudimentary sensor. How it could deliver a small object across the room. He even pointed out its flaws, humble and precise. The auditorium, once full of indifferent onlookers, began to shift. Word spread. Soon, people clustered around his table. Phones recorded. Questions came from all sides. Tara stepped back and watched as Arjun, once silent in the back row, explained his thinking with clarity and calm. He didn't try to impress. He just told the truth. By the end of the day, Arjun Mishra had not only won the exhibition, but he also received 3 internship offers, a scholarship recommendation from the district science board, and a personal invitation from the judge to visit a technology lab in the city. The principal, who once considered removing him, shook his hand. Students who used to snicker now looked at him with awe. But none of that changed him. That evening, as the school emptied and the banners came down, Arjun and Tara stood outside under the soft pink glow of sunset. You did it, she said. He looked up at her with wide, grateful eyes. No. You did. You saw me. Tears welled in her eyes, unspoken emotions catching in her throat. I just held up the mirror. You were always a masterpiece. He pulled something from his pocket, an old keychain, made from twisted wire and a small light. It's yours, he said. The first thing I ever built. I was 7. It still works if you twist it. She took it gently, a smile tugging at her lips. Thank you, Arjun. He looked away shyly, cheeks pink. One more thing. She turned toward him. Why did you help me? He asked. Her smile softened. Because someone once helped me when I thought I was invisible. He watched her in silence, understanding dawning in his eyes. Dash dash dash. From that day forward, Arjun walked the halls with more confidence. He still didn't raise his hand in class. Still preferred broken toys over textbooks. But now, he belonged. And as for Tara, she found her purpose again. Not in textbooks or syllabi, but in seeing the unseen. Years later, long after she left the town and moved on to lead education programs across the country, she'd receive a letter. It had no sender name. Just a note written in clean, familiar handwriting. To Miss Tara Mehra. I built something. It works. And now, so do I, Arjun. Inside was a photo. A sleek black drone soaring above a dry village, delivering medicine to flood victims. At the bottom, developed by Arjun Mishra, lead engineer, Skyreach India. Tara sat in her new office, tears rolling freely. A small act of kindness. And now, the world flew on its wings. 5 years later, the wind in Jaipur carried a scent of wet earth as monsoon clouds rolled across the sky. Tara Mehra stood in a wide courtyard of a technology institute, now a keynote speaker on educational innovation, sharing stories of forgotten students and quiet miracles. But there was one story she never shared in full. Not yet. The conference ended with thunderous applause. As she stepped away from the podium, an event coordinator tapped her shoulder. Someone's been waiting to see you. He said you'd recognize him. She turned. There he was. Taller. Shoulders broader. Eyes still gentle. Arjun. He smiled nervously, holding a drone in one hand and a tattered notebook in the other. The same notebook she'd once pulled from a dusty art room. I added the last page, he said, voice steadier than she remembered. She opened it. Inside was a sketched image of a school desk, 2 chairs. On one sat a small boy, head bowed, paper blank. Across from him, a teacher leaning in, not with a red pen, but with open hands. Below it, 4 words in capital letters. Because she saw me. Her throat closed. You didn't have to come all this way, she said, trying to steady herself. I did, he replied. There's something I never said. She blinked, her heart thudding. You gave me more than help. You gave me belief. You didn't just teach me. You fought for me. You saw a future when I couldn't see past tomorrow. He paused, breath catching. And somewhere along the way, I started carrying you with me. In every success. In every risk. In every failure. Tara stared at him, tears misting her eyes. Arjun. He reached into his bag, pulling out a small velvet box. It's not a proposal, he said quickly, shyly. Not yet. Just a gift. For now. Inside was a custom keychain, polished metal and wire, a miniature version of the first thing he'd ever built for her. I still remember how you smiled when I gave you the original one. That smile, that's the moment I first believed I could be more. Tara held it in her palm, voice trembling. You always were more. I just reminded you. They stood in silence, the hum of rain beginning to patter on the courtyard tiles. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. No pressure, he said. I just wanted you to know, wherever I go next, I want you to be part of it. She smiled through tears. I already am. Dash dash dash. Epilogue. 2 years later, the world watched as a revolutionary drone system saved hundreds during a flood crisis. The engineer credited the design to a boy who once got 0 marks in school, and a teacher who gave him everything. In a quiet home filled with books and blueprints, a photo stood framed on a shelf. It showed a woman and a man, not in suits, not in gowns, but in simple clothes, standing beside a chalkboard with the words, believe in the unseen. Sometimes, love doesn't begin with a confession. Sometimes, it begins with a kind glance. And a blank page. That becomes a future. Together.